to Sunday Live. Now, for a majority of Kenyans, owning a home often remains a dream many aspire to. High mortgage rates, inflated property prices, and insufficient incomes are factors that often bar Kenyans from owning a home.
Well, this is where the affordable housing plan under the Jubilee government's Big Four agenda comes in. In a nutshell, the government plans to build 500,000 affordable homes. Under that plan, it also seeks to essentially turn slum dwellers into homeowners.
Just how does it plan to do that? Well, Principal Secretary for the State Department for Housing and Urban Development, Charles Hinga, is here to break it down for us. But before that, we sought to see what the current conditions of some slum dwellers actually look like and find out how they hope this grand plan will give them the keys to homes of their own.
Here's the story of residents from Mathere's T area. It's a dreary morning here in Mathere. Roofs dripping from the recent rains. This young lady affording a smile despite the less than favorable conditions around her. She's standing in the heart of T area. From up here, it looks like your typical slum dwelling, with tiny 6x6 or 10x12 quarters nestled in what was a stone quarry back in the colonial days. But when it rains, it becomes a logistical and hygiene nightmare.
This sewage janza jana ama last year. From 2010 hii sewage imekuwa hapa. Na sioni changes. Mafi inaingia hadi kwa manyumba. Na sisi wazazi ndio tunaona hiyo shida.
It was an area that was meant to accommodate between 12,000 to 13,000 people. To date, that figure has ballooned to 300,000, according to community leaders. The influx of people brought on by rural-urban migration over the years saw the sewage system crumble and expose residents to serious health hazards. These pipes are efforts by the county government to fix the drainage issue. They've been laying here for 4 months now. Some residents have even constructed concrete barriers at their doorsteps to act as dikes.
Mimi huwa ndio nafuatilia hii drainage ikifunga, sababu chafu imezidi hapa ndani. Sasa sisi unajua tuko mahali tumekaa kama chokora, na sisi sio chokora. Tukikutana town hata uwezi amini tunakaa mahali kama hapa.
Baba Muhammad has known no other home than T area for the last 20 years. He was one of the beneficiaries of Mathere 4A slum upgrading project when it was launched in 1995 by then Minister for Public Works and Housing, Jonathan Ngeno.
This area is called T area. The reason why it's called T area is because these houses were meant to be temporary houses for the plan, that the initial plan that were there for the upgrading of the houses.
Local support came from the Nairobi City Council, which was given responsibility for infrastructure and design approval. Residents under the project would make payments of between 200 and 500 shillings a month through cooperatives as a way of saving to own the houses after some time. However, in the early 2000s, corruption, tribalism, lack of proper communication channels, and ideological differences led to the downfall of the Mathere slum upgrading project that was meant to improve housing and living conditions of the approximated 25,000 residents of Mathere 4A. David Olo, who's lived in Mathere since 1974, has seen the starts and stops of this project, but is determined to revive it to improve living conditions here.
This year in March, we were called by PS. We went there. We talked about Mathere. Even him, he has not come to Mathere. He just want to know where is Mathere and what are you doing after the project was stalled. First, we invited him to come to Mathere and see for himself before we come to any meeting and discuss further about Mathere. After that, he told us he's going to communicate with us to see when we can come and visit the whole Mathere. And since then, we have not communicated, since things are many in the ministry and he's new there. We are still waiting for him.
The government's affordable housing plan under the Big Four agenda has earmarked 6.5 billion shillings for its realization. One item under the plan is to eradicate slums in Nairobi and other major towns in the next 5 years. Some have questioned the practicality of the social housing aspect of the plan and how low-income earners will be netted into the scheme to own homes.
The people in this community, I can't tell you that they can pay maybe 1,000 or more than 1,000 for rental a month. That's a lie. And I think that's the fear that's within this community. Yes, they might accept the houses, but now the payment. So according to me, I think it will be a consultation between the community and the government on how to pay.
Paul hopes Mathare residents will not be left behind in the government's grand housing plan.
The people remained like us. You know, we are born in this area. The idea was us to own houses. So it's clearly, there's no one who doesn't want to own a house. Affordable housing is the one thing that will bring a lot of change. There'll be a playground for our children. There'll be a market for our women, for our mothers to sell.
It is change that's been a long time coming for these residents. Time will tell whether their hopes of having a home to call their own is just another pipe dream or a reality in the making. All right, joining me in studio now is the Principal Secretary for the State Department for Housing and Urban Development, Charles Hinga. Thank you so much for coming in. A lot of questions swirling around this whole affordable housing plan. But first, let's deal with the issue of slum dwellers. Of course, you saw the dire situation of T-area residents in Mathare. The sewage system has given out. They're wondering when will government actually fix that, beyond even giving them decent housing. But how does the government intend to deal with a situation like Mathare in the most immediate sense?
Thank you very much, and good evening to the viewers. That documentary that you've just shown characterizes our housing condition in this country. In urban areas where 65% of our people live in those deplorable conditions. Now, it's obviously a daunting task, but we are up to the task. Now, for us to be able to do that, and in an environment where the purse is getting tighter and there's so many things that we have to do, we have come up with a very innovative way of attracting private capital. Now, the statistics, if you allow me to share with you, show that our housing demand every year is 250,000 houses. Of the 250,000, 170,000 is what you will consider to be low-cost housing or affordable housing, including social housing. That makes the balance of 80,000, which is your high end.
Right.
In terms of the supply, we are supplying 49,000 out of 80,000 for the high end, which is pretty good. If you're, I know, probably an A student, that is a pass. But the atrocious number is on the low cost, where we're doing only 1,000 out of 170,000 houses. And if you're a student, you will not even say it's a fail. We'll just basically say you never showed up. That is the situation. And that is something that has continued to grow. And in 1967, we enacted the Housing Act. Around the same time, a country like Singapore, that was growing at had almost the same size GDP, also enacted a similar program. Their program allowed citizens to contribute 22% of their income into a central provident fund, and the employers topped it up with 17%. Today, about 70% of Singaporeans live in a government-sponsored house. All you need is a pay slip. For us, since 1967, we never did anything.
Right.
And that is why we are where we are. So we have got a lot of issues, and the reason why we have reached to a point where we call unaffordable and unavailable can be characterized by 4 key things. One is the cost of land. Cost of land in the country is very high. Specifically in Nairobi, it's the most expensive in the continent. Secondly, where land is available, it's not serviced. So we don't have the bulk infrastructure. We've seen just lack of basic infrastructure in those areas. So that means that for us to be able to put up the basic infrastructure, it's still going to be very expensive. Two is the way we construct our houses. We have a building code that is very old, in the 1940s, which recognizes stone as the only permanent building material. World over, people have moved over into new technologies. We are starting to embrace that. The third thing is the cost of processes and legislation sometimes that are in conflict with our agenda. So for example, you have got a situation where the permitting process, you have someone who has a mortgage, the house has been built with borrowings from the bank, and it takes more than 9 months to transfer title. And there are many other examples that I can list. And lastly is the cost of financing. Now, cost of financing can be broken down into two, the demand side and the supply side.
Right.
On the supply side, that is where we have a big problem. Because we are, as I said, out of 170,000, we are doing 1,000. And largely is because 97% of formally employed Kenyans earn less than 100,000 shillings. 72% earn less than 50,000. That means most Kenyans will never qualify for a mortgage. And a mortgage in Kenya costs 6 times what it costs rent. So all those issues are the ones combined have brought us to where we are.
So how do we net in the low-income earners? We heard one of the residents of T area in Mathare saying, to be very honest, if they were to deduct any money from us to put into a housing scheme, they can't afford more than 1,000 shillings a month.
And that is sufficient enough. Because under this program, what we have put together is, first of all, a recognition that there is no private sector person that is going to go build houses and expect someone in Mathare to come and occupy and pay a mortgage. Therefore, government has got to intervene. But I want to make it very clear that government is not going to build those houses. So what we are doing is that we are facilitating by making land available, because as government, first of all, we have a lot of land, not as much as is available in the private sector, but we want to control what we can. So we have mapped about 7,400 acres of land across the country, in every county, which we are packaging. We are also servicing by putting what is called trunk infrastructure, roads, sewer lines, electricity, and then we release that land to the private sector to build with their money. Now, for us to be able to make sure then that the houses will be built, we needed what is called certainty of cash flows. And that is why we went back and asked Kenyans to make a little sacrifice, right? The 1.5% contribution, and the employer tops up with the 1.5%. By doing that, what we have managed to do is to collectively put into a pot about 6 billion shillings a month. With 6 billion shillings a month, I am now able to sign what is called guaranteed offtake with the developers, that whatever houses they build, I'm going to buy. So therefore, I immunize the developer from Wanjiko's issues. Then I am left to deal with Wanjiko's issues. Because if someone in Mathare tells me they can only afford 1,000 shillings, I can be able to structure the repayment maybe 30 years, 40 years, so that we are able to meet the president's directive, as he gave it last year, December 12, where he says, under this program, you will be able to live in a decent house that you will own for the same price of what you're paying rent today. So that is what we are going to do. But it cannot happen if we are not able to have certainty of cash flows that every month the investors know that there's this money that's coming in.
This is a mandatory deduction.
It is.
It will begin in January next year. And some feeling, what if I don't want a home? Why am I being made to pay out this amount? And I'm not sure what kind of home I'll get anyway.
Right. So first of all, there is what we call qualifying, the qualifying criteria. So this program, first of all, deals with people earning 100,000 and below.
Right.
But for people earning 100,000 and above, we have put together an institution called Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company that will be able to issue mortgages at fixed rate of about 10% over long tenure. All right? So everybody has a chance of having an affordable house, which is you must not pay more than 30% of your disposable income to own or rent a house. Now, for those Kenyans that say, I don't want a house, we hear you. But for us to be able to unlock the supply side, we need to make this to be a compulsory contribution. If you don't get a house, you get back your money.
When do you get back your money?
You get back your money at the earlier of 5 years. I mean at the earlier of 15 years or retirement. So whichever comes in early, you can be able to get back your money.
And what if someone probably dies in the process of the money being paid out? What happens?
It is paid to the
that?
beneficiaries.
To the beneficiaries.
That is
there.
correct. Yeah, and you will get your money, by the way, with a return. And actually, just to put it into context, if the maximum anybody in this country will pay is 2,500, what people don't actually know is that government has actually given you 9,000 shillings every month. So you're contributing 2,500. We are also topping up with another 9,000 for what is called affordable housing relief. That means that every month we are contributing on your behalf. Obviously, you have to register, and then you have got to go to KRA and elect to get the relief. Once you get that relief, you start putting it aside. So this is money that ordinarily was going to KRA, but they give you back to put in your wallet so that you can afford a deposit for the house when they're ready.
So in a practical sense, someone who is wishing to buy a home, what will be out there in terms of the housing prices? If someone wants to get a studio apartment or a 3-bedroom, what does the pricing range look like?
Currently, we have got a studio house. Okay, we have got a 1-roomed house starting at 600,000, and the highest amount, which is a 3-bedroom, which is 3 million. Now that same 3 million house today is going for 6-7 million in the market. So that is a transformative power of this affordable housing. And Victoria, one of the things that we have got to agree is that we cannot say that we are not our brother's keepers. Yeah. What you have shown in that documentary, it is untenable. Our people live in subhumane conditions. I have not had a chance to go to Mathare, but I've gone to other places. I've seen little girls the age of my little girl. They live in a tiny house, okay? And they live with their extended families. It is not decent. Some of them, you can see they've seen way too much. They have no toilets, they have no water. As a matter of fact, when we solve the issue of housing, we also solve our issue of health, because 60% of our health cases are actually waterborne diseases. And the waterborne diseases is because, right, you have got no sanitation in majority of the places where we live. People throw effluent into the rivers. So we are starting to right a wrong that has taken many years to build. It's not going to be easy, but we're determined to make it.
Let me take you back to the issue of contributions, because a lot of people, the reason why they are concerned, truthfully, is where is this money going? Who's going to be the custodian of this money once I've given it off?
Right.
This is part of that National Housing Development Fund.
That is correct.
I want sureties that my money is going to be safe.
So, Victoria, what is going to happen? You will actually get a wallet, right? You will see your own money, where it's going. Together with your relief, you'll be able to monitor your money every month.
So will this be on a platform? You can get it on your phone?
It is on a platform. You can access it on the phone. You can access it on a web portal. All right.
So who will be manning this fund? The ministry?
So at the moment, the fund is established under the Housing Act, Section 6, which makes it the mandate of National Housing Corporation. There are some restructuring that are ongoing at the moment, and we are going to have trustees, okay, which are going to involve private sector, financial institutions, pension funds, and we are going to have what is called administrators as well, okay, who are experienced people in administering the money. We're going to have fund managers. What I can guarantee you we are not going to do, we are not going to create another massive institution, okay, that is inefficient. Okay, so the money, the same way we are executing, is largely going to be managed by the private sector.
Even if NHC has a hand in this, it's not been, void of corruption.
Absolutely.
So how do we know it's going to be okay, even with it manning most of that?
So as I said, there's going to be trustees.
Yeah.
Okay, so the trustee is going to be obviously a qualified, whether it's an actuary or a firm of actuaries that manages that. There's an administrator, okay, which is going to be also outsourced. Okay, the board of NHC is just going to have an oversight over the fund. All right, but that money is going to be completely immunized from any interference, and that has been designed on purpose because we know of the cases of where previous funds, we have had people putting their hands in the cookie jar.
And lastly, I have to ask this just for the sake of the residents I spoke to in Madariti area, wondering when is this sewage system going to be actually fixed? At least a commitment to them, because you had community leaders who also tried to get in touch with you and find out how do they deal with this particular issue and problem.
So let me just explain what we're doing. First of all, housing is a devolved function, and so is the infrastructure. So the county of Nairobi needs to step up and come to the party in terms of making this provision of basic services available to the people. But we as national government have gone and we've raised 30 billion shillings that we are allocating to counties across the country in terms of providing what is called resilient urban infrastructure. Right. So the counties have money. It's up to them to prioritize where it's going to be. But you can imagine it is in Mathare, it is in Kibera, it's in Marigoini, it's in Kiambio. That situation, it is dire. And that is why we've got to fix it, and we've got to start today.
Many asking, where is that land that government is going to give to actually build these housing developments, especially in a place like Nairobi, which is taken up almost.
So let me give you an example. We as national government, we have what we call old estates. Okay, so we are starting with Park Road, all right, which is up the road. The tender process is going on at the moment. We have Starehe, we have Shauri Moyo, we have got railway pension that has Makongeni. So we do have land. But here is an interesting fact. Nairobi and national government in the Eastlands, all right, we have got 546,000 hectares of land. Of that 546,000 hectares of land, we have only 42,000 units. So it's poor utilization of space. So we've done an Eastlands master plan, and we are going to implement, but systematically and with orderly, and we're going to densify. So the study shows that in Eastlands alone, we can move from 42,000 to 210,000 houses just by regenerating Eastlands. We don't need to build new roads because the roads are there. We have a rail that cuts across Eastlands. So there are some low-hanging fruits. But also, we have land outside.
So by regenerating, do you mean you'll be doing some demolitions to be able to rework some of those areas?
Yes, but the way we're going to do it is going to be done in a decent fashion. So we build the camping sites, or what is called transitional homes. So we will come, and there's an enumeration process. So if you're living in Makongeni today, you will come back in Makongeni. And there's a contract we're going to enter with you, and some of them will say, okay, it's fine, just pay me 2 years of rental, I go look for a house. We're also looking at that as well. But we have got to do it. Obviously it is much more difficult to do that than where we have land. And counties are, so first of all, one of the questions that has been is whether this is only in Nairobi. It is in every county. We have given, as I said, counties 30 billion shillings in the next 5 years for them to put what is called resilient urban infrastructure. Servicing the land, by the way, private sector will come and build. We are partnering with SACCOs. SACCOs have a lot of land. The problem with the SACCOs, the SACCO model is that if you're a SACCO member, you borrow money, you pay for the land over 3 years, then you go back again, borrow more money, and then you put up your top structure, and then you go back and borrow, and then you do your finishes. It takes you 7 years. Under this program, what we are doing is that we are refinancing SACCOs. So SACCOs must continue doing what they do, but then they will give you a facility, which is instead of 7 years, they can be able to give you 20 years to pay. Right?
Great. Thank you so much, P.S. Singa, for your time.
Thank you so much.
And insights as well. I know the questions still abound. Kenyans wondering, when will I actually get that key to that home? Of course, they've been waiting for decades for this opportunity. So let's see in the next few years if it actually comes.
And Victoria, just to say that we also need to look at this as an investment, because for every one house that we're going to build, we're going to create 5 new jobs. For every $1 that is going to be invested in this market, we're going to create $3 more. Ask yourself that we need plumbers, we need artisans. These are all good jobs. So let Kenyans know that they must look at the value chain, all right? We're working with Juakali people so that they manufacture the doors. So we have standardized the doors, we have standardized the windows. If you do a door a day, now you should be able to do 100 with a guaranteed buyer.
All right, so we'll see if that ripple effect actually builds that ecosystem we were talking about.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. On that note, we'll take a short break here on Sunday.